My name is Frank Beddor, and I'm the author of the Looking Glass Horse trilogy, which is a reimagining of Alice in Wonderland. At least that's what people say it is, but the truth is, it's really the discovery that Wonderland is real. And if you'd like to know the story about what I discovered, I will tell you. So a number of years ago, I was working on a movie called There's Something About Mary, and I was in London for the British premiere. And I had an hour to kill, and I went to the museum, the British Museum, and they had this remarkable exhibit of ancient cards, playing cards, tarot cards, but there was one deck, an incomplete deck, that had Alice-themed art. And I became obsessed with this art. And then I discovered an antiquities dealer that claimed to have the remaining cards to the deck. And I met with him, and he told me that what actually happened was Princess Alice Hart was enjoying her 7th birthday when suddenly there was a violent coup led by her evil Aunt Red, and her bodyguard whisked her to safety through the pool of tears, but they got separated. It's a portal from Wonderland to our world, and Alice shot out of a puddle, and she ended up in Oxford, and she met Lewis Carroll, and she told her harrowing adventure to Lewis Carroll, and he promised to write a book, but he changed it. And I've been holding and been burdened with the true story for years and years. And my book is about what happened to Alice when Lewis Carroll rewrote her story, and when the Hatter Madigan finally found her, brought her back to Wonderland to fight for her rightful place as the true warrior queen of Wonderland. The truth always comes out. Well, I started post 9/11, and as you know, with Alice keeps getting reimagined and reinterpreted based on what's going on in the zeitgeist. And I have written 3 novels that Penguin published and 6 graphic novels. And the graphic novels tell the story from the bodyguard's point of view during his 13-year search for Alice. And the novels tell the story from Alice's point of view when she is 7, and then she finds herself in England, and then when she returns. And then the follow-up novels are about careful what you wish for, because now she has to rule the land and the complications that she faces. You know, I don't see any pushback from traditionalists because Alice has been so deeply seated in popular culture on every level, whether it's music or movies or books or art or even other authors who just use it as a jumping off place for inspiration. But what I do see in these comic book conventions is the wish fulfillment, the sense of finding an identity, and an identity that is empowering, and that Alice has a say over what her life is going to look like and what she can create and where she's going. And it feels very contemporary. In my story, Alice is the lead, she's the hero, and all of the men support her. In my story, it's a queendom, and the women rule, and the men support that. And so there's something that's about that we're feeling changing. You can feel that changing in culture with Hillary Clinton running for president. I mean, something as simple as that. So I think that the graphic novels have a visceral thrill that's a little different than reading books, and it's different than superheroes, but she's super empowered. So she has her own superpower. Yeah, it's pretty thrilling, and I think people see what they want to see in the character, and that's why we all artists keep going back to that amazing source material. It just keeps feeding us. And I always think of Alice as an avatar of imagination. So everything comes from imagination and the power of imagination. And in my story, imagination is a real thing. It's like magic, but she can literally conjure. And that's what people want. They want to conjure a life that they see in their imagination, not a life that they're necessarily living. I often have people ask me, where did that idea come from? It's so imaginative. Well, what if there was a place where imagination was nurtured? And that's part of the idea in my book, is that imagination is a source, and it's a gift from Wonderland that is communicated through the heart crystal to the worlds around it, and that we latch on to that piece of inspiration. And after all, it feels to me that people look for that in life. They want to find an imaginative solution to their situation in life. And we're all looking for the ideal self and journey. And so I think imagination is a real key for a lot of us. And that childhood imagination, that little kid imagination, don't let that go anywhere. Hold on to that, because that can lead you to where you might not expect to go left or right. That's my right. You might want to go left. So that's a very good question. I'll start with, I didn't realize how deeply seated Alice was in pop culture. So I started researching and I started collecting everything I could just so I would know the breadth of it all. And then when I was writing my book, my big fantasy was one day someone will wear a costume for Halloween. And I blew past that. Then somebody showed up with a tattoo of "Follow the Glow," which is a saying in my graphic novel. And then they showed up with a tattoo of the 4 suit families from my novel. And then the cosplayers showed up. And then the cosplayers and I went on The View because Whoopi Goldberg, I did a Kickstarter campaign, and it turns out she was a big fan, and she said, "I've been reading your books for years, I want you to come on the show." So I went on the show and introduced my new book, Hatter, Madigan, Ghost in the Hatbox. And that doesn't happen very often for an author, but that's all of the people connecting to this idea of imagination, and we all want it. And whether it's Alice, she's the avatar that connects us all. It's been 150 years. It's a good question. So in Alice 200, what will people be talking about? I'll be long gone. I hope that my works will be in that time capsule, but I'm sure it'll keep, some of the great works, they keep evolving, and there's no reason for it not. It'll just keep reflecting the time. I'm sure it'll be around.